So the Make the Right Moves video number 2 is about attitude and learning. And attitude is absolutely critical with a project. You know, in many cases, it's the first time you've done it. There's going to be a lot of challenges, a lot of problems. We've all worked on projects, or at least I certainly have, where we've got a whiner who complains and says it's not my fault, I didn't do that, that's impossible. I had a client that was just like that. It would take 2 hours to get through that before it get done, right? And I get paid a lot of money to do that, and that's great, but that's something you can't have. You've got to find a way to get and overcome that kind of thing. So making sure that you have the right attitude and your team has the right attitude, really, really critical. And the other thing is that from a learning standpoint, right, you're going to have to take I don't know out of your vocabulary. It doesn't work. I don't know doesn't get you anywhere. It's a negative statement. It's below the line. You'll learn about that in the attitude item, but it doesn't work. So instead of saying I don't know, before you even say the words, ask yourself, where can I go learn that? So at the end of this video, it's a workshop. Write down your action items. What do you need to keep track of? All right, so let's first talk about responsibility. Now, I realize this is a project management program, but we're still going to start off with belief and attitude. Projects are fraught with challenges. They show up unbidden. You must have the belief that you can achieve the goals set forth in the project. If not, you can stop now. You will always run into something that you didn't plan on. This is just the way of the world. Now, after you have the belief that you can solve the problem, that you're going to get through it, regardless of whatever happens, you're going to get there, right? Then you have to have the right attitude and the right response to the problems you'll encounter. So let's talk about that attitude, right? So people who live above the line have nothing to prove, right? They're comfortable in their own skin. They're proactive, right? They're responsible. They take ownership for all the decisions that they make. They're visionary, right? Forward thinking, focused. And they embrace personal and business excellence. Those are the victors of the world, right? So let's talk about those down below the line, right? Those who live below the line bend with the trends. They bend in the wind. Whichever the wind blows today, there they are. Below the line people, they blame others for things and situations and results. They have all sorts of excuses for why things are the way they are or the way they aren't. They're generally negative and exhibit the, oh, woe is me type syndrome. They're often in denial that they had anything to do with things, or that they should have done something at all, or that they did something that they shouldn't have done. And last but not least, they are scarcity thinking. They do not embrace competition or self-improvement or others' opinions as valuable. Now this is, as a business owner, this is the responsibility you need to take, right? This guy down below is the victim. We really don't care to be that position. We want to be the victor, right? The victor, opportunity seekers. That's the attitude that you want. Failure magnets for the victim, not so good, right? Don't be the victim. Now you as the owner or the project manager have the ability to take control and decide how you want to react and respond. And we all know people that are above the line and or below the line, right? And this is the tool that you want to use to help people understand what their attitude and their response, what that has to be. The reality is that we can't always decide when the problems come in. We don't get to challenge, right? And sometimes big problems come in and we will find our way below the line. And the key is to recognize that and then fight and scratch and claw and get back above the line. And if for some reason you can't do that by yourself, raise your hand and talk to somebody else. Everybody on the project team is here to help you be more successful, right? If you've got legitimate challenges and legitimate issues, then we're here to help you. But if you're making excuses and you're blaming somebody else and you're negative, then we're going to have to make a different type of decision. So now that we've covered attitude, we can talk about what's the process. And learning is a really important process for most people with projects, because projects are rarely repeated unless you're in the project management business. 80% of all technology projects miss the mark and fail. 80% of all construction projects fail to hit the scope, schedule, and budget targets. So let's take a look at the learning process, because you're going to be in it a lot with this particular project, or with any particular project you're doing, because like I say, you don't do them on a day-to-day basis. Not everyone participates in construction projects, but everyone must engage in technology projects. Technology is the key to efficiency, and without efficiency, we just can't compete. So here's the key. We got 4 steps, right? The first step is called unconscious incompetence. Incompetence means we don't know how to do something. Unconscious means we're not aware. We're not aware that we have a skill or knowledge process lacking. We don't know what we don't know. So you can't move off this step by yourself. It will take some outside stimulus, something that you see or hear, right? You'll need to learn what's out there and how others do it. Make time to expose yourself to new information, new ideas, new activity. This is a key component of the Make the Right Moves process. Once you're aware that something exists, you're instantly transitioned to step 2. Now, step 2 is conscious incompetence, right? So here we are lacking, we're aware, but we lack knowledge or competence. We know what it is, but we don't know how to do it. However, at this point, at least you're in control, right? You can evaluate and choose to decide if it's something of value to your project. You can decide if you want to go through the effort to learn it. If so, you'll move to step 3. For projects, you might consider a resource that already knows the service or practice, and you might save a little bit of time, right? So this is a place where you can make a decision to engage somebody else, so you don't have to take the time to learn how to do something. So the next step is conscious competence, right? This is where you learn how to do it, right? But just because you know how to do it doesn't mean you are necessarily good at it, right? Some things require more than just education. They take practice and feedback to achieve any level of proficiency. So most people struggle the first week learning to drive a manual transmission automobile. Riding a bike for the first time takes practice as well. In both instances, we get feedback from our mistakes. The car shudders or stalls as we work to get the timing of the clutch and shifting of the gas correct, or we crash the bike as we're working on the balance requirement of a bicycle. Practice and feedback lead to step 4. And step 4 is really that part where we're going to become proficient. We're going to be good at this particular category, right? Now, when we're at step 3, we might decide, again, that rather than me going through the practice or the feedback, that I could hire somebody else, right? And think about your time. And when we talk about time, it's a really important piece. It'll show up later on in this presentation. But you need to focus on the highest and best use of your time. And so in this case right here, you might decide that you want to hire somebody else and not have to go through the work to get to unconscious competence, or what I call proficiency. Now, knowing what step you're on helps you to define what is needed to make the right move to the next step. All right, so here's the process of translating ideas into results. It's a pretty simple process. Most projects are engaged to create money or income. There are other reasons: compliance, safety, and those really have to do more with keeping what you have, right? So we have offensive projects which are designed to get you more, and defensive projects designed to keep what you have. But here's the process. You get an idea, right? And the Make the Right Moves project process is all about helping you generate those ideas, right? And from there, once you have that idea, now you have to do some research and you figure out whether it's a good idea or not, and you might have to make a presentation. Somewhere along the line, you've got to do the analysis that says why this is a good idea and what are the results going to be. And once you've done that presentation, then you've got to get some agreement, right? The agreement between you and your team, or you and anybody else, you and the shareholders. But once you've gone through those 3 steps, now you're off you go, and that's how you end up getting to results. Now, the process we're going to talk about, right, is all of those things, right? How do we define the presentation? How do we get agreement, right? How do we do a plan to get those results? We're going to cover all of those things. You get the agreement, you execute, you get the results. All right, so let's talk about the attributes of successful projects. First thing that must be done is you have to clearly define the problem and the result, right? What is the problem that we have, and what are the results that we want to get or achieve from this particular project? The greater the clarity, the greater the success. The second one is, as we looked at the slide before, is sponsorship and employee engagement. Now, unless you're the only one that's ever needed to be operating in this project, you're going to have some other people on the team. Now, they might be employees, they might be peers, they might be vendors, they might be service providers. And when it comes to sponsorship, somebody's going to have to fund this project. Somebody's going to have to say, yes, I'll spend the money and take responsibility for making any key decisions in the project. Well, after that, we really got to understand, how do we validate this proposition, right? How do we validate this project? The reality is that there's never enough time to do everything. There's only enough time to do the right things, and we need some way to compare our project or our projects to all the other opportunities that are out there. Once we've gotten that far, right, so we've defined the project, we've got the sponsorship, we've made sure that it's the right project, this is when we begin to do an action plan with resources and milestones. And the last piece, and the piece where people get hung up all the time, is that we need a change management program. We need a change management plan because changes will occur. All right, the primary takeaway concept from this program is to complete this report for each project, this report card. And it's really a line item, each of the 5 key attributes. Start with the most important projects first. For today, pick an important project or goal that you're working on. And we'll come back to this pretty frequently after we get through each section, right? So how are you with respect to having clearly defined your problem and your result? How are we doing on engagement, sponsorship, right? Have we validated the project? Is this the right project to be working on? Do we have a plan? Do we have resources established and milestones? And then do we have change management activities? Your goal is to get to an A+ in every single one of these areas, right? But put down where you think you sit today on each one of those categories. All right, so now you understand the victor-victim model, you understand the learning stages model, what are your action items? Do you need to do something about your attitude? Because it happens. Business owners get below the line sometimes, right? Or your team's attitude. Do we have to do something in particular there? Is there some teaching or some training that needs to be done there? And then from a learning standpoint, what are you going to do? Where are you at on the learning curve? And what are you going to do next, right? You need to expose yourself to something new. You need to find out how to do certain things in different ways. What's the process? How are you going to do that?